plants sort of as they're growing in the wild. Unfortunately, we're not able to do that this year, but hopefully at some point you'll be able to wander around Auburn Bio Nature Center and see the plants for yourself. During this trip, we normally walk through 3 basic habitats, and they can be broadly listed as sort of a wetlands area, and these wetland areas are wet all the time, generally with standing water, all or most of the year. Our second kind of habitat, and probably the largest habitat, can be described as sort of a moist savanna, moist prairie area, and these areas can be characterized by poorly drained soils, but much of the year the ground is very, very wet, saturated with water, and other times of the year it completely dries out. And this is the area you'll see a lot. You'll see a wooded area and some prairie areas that fit this description. And the third area that we would walk through can be described as sort of upland prairie area. And this area is characterized by having much better drained soils. Let's go ahead and we'll start this tour and we'll wander through the wetlands area first.
The bald cypress, Taxodium distinctum, are pretty feathery looking trees that can grow up to 75 feet. They lose all their leaves early in the fall, hence the name bald. Those fallen leaves make excellent flower bed mulch. Many balds live near or in the water and grow multiple knees or small root-like projections near its trunk. Possibly the knees allow increased respiration or increased stability in the muddy environment they so often choose, or both. Mature bark has a redness in its grooves. It is the larval host of the cypress sphinx moth. White fringe tree. White fringe trees can be a small tree or a large shrub with multiple trunks. Modest pruning improves its presentation in a landscape. Fringe trees bloom with delicate lace-like clusters of white flowers. It likes to hover on wood edges, but can be a landscape tree as well. The female produces dark blue fruits that attract pileated woodpeckers.
Buttonbush is a deciduous shrub or small tree that usually grows under 10 feet, but can reach heights of 45 feet. This shrub can grow a foot underwater or in moist soil. In early summer, it has a flower display of white 1 to 2 inch globes that produce a honey odor. The more sun it gets, the more flowers it produces. Buttonbush is a bee and butterfly magnet. In the fall, the seed balls feed 25 species of birds as well, including ducks. Strawberry bush is a deciduous shrub that grows up to 6 feet tall. It does well in shade or partial shade as an understory plant. It has green branches and produces red blooms that turn white in spring. In summer, the fruit turns red and splits open to expose red seeds, providing food for birds. The leaves turn red in the fall. Strawberry bush can tolerate poor drainage.
The spider lily is a 1 to 2 foot tall, part sun shade, deciduous or dormant in the fall to winter. Has fragrant white blooms up to 7 inches across. The blooms look like a cup with straps. The leaves are strap-like, narrower than crinum lily leaves, and it likes to grow in poorly drained area, prefers wet. The bloom will set 3 large acorn-sized seeds which fall to the ground and begin their growth. These large seeds can be harvested when mature, laid on top of the ground, and they'll soon send out a white root, and it grows a new plant.
Virginia sweetspire is a creeping shrub that grows 3 to 8 feet tall and produces 4-inch white drooping spires in the spring. Because of its thicket-forming manner, this shrub is excellent for colonizing slopes and protecting against erosion. While it can be lightly pruned, it is not appropriate as a boxy hedge. Virginia sweetspire has fall color, and the leaves may stay on through most of the winter. Cherokee sedge grows in clumps 1 to 2 feet tall and 1 foot wide. It does well in sun, partial shade, or shade. In addition to providing food for birds, Cherokee sedge produces tall hanging flower and seed stalks that are attractive in late spring. Because this sedge is evergreen, it can be used as a ground cover or border plant, and clumps spread slowly through short underground rhizomes. Dwarf palmetto is a slow-growing shrub that produces pale green or bluish fan-like leaves atop spineless stems, arising from an underground trunk. The leaf blades can grow up to 4 feet wide, and while dwarf palmettos typically grow only 5 to 6 feet tall, they can reach heights of 10 feet. White blooms are followed by black fruit about half an inch wide in long clusters. The plant forms a more visible trunk when grown in standing water.
Carolina jessamine is a 10 to 20 foot long vine that, like sun to part sun, it's perennial. It has yellow trumpet flowers with spicy fragrance. They start blooming in late January and last into March. It's evergreen ground cover or vine with glossy leaves. It usually grows in sandy loam but does very well in urban black clay. The vine climbs by twining. All parts are...
Now we're moving through the moist savannas and prairies area, characterized by the poorly drained soils.
The wood fern is a 1 to 3 foot part shade deciduous fern with arching fronds of tapered light green leaves. The tip leaves are much smaller and closer together. This fern can take some sun, will go dormant without water, but will green up again with moisture. It spreads by rhizomes. The leaves are wider at the base. Cut off dead fronds in early spring. The Turk's cap is a 3 to 5 foot, sun to part shade semi-evergreen. Has bright red blooms from spring to fall. Blooms better in the sun, also a red button-like fruit. Very adaptive to a wide variety of habitats and spreads easily. If it has any winter kill, cut the dead wood back in spring or cut to maintain a smaller size and shape. Hummingbirds and butterflies are attracted like a magnet. Larval host for white skipper and scrub hairstreak. Red fruit in fall enjoyed by wildlife.
American beautyberry is a deciduous understory shrub with pink lavender spring flowers and brilliant magenta fall berry clusters that encircle the branches. Branches can be cut back after fruiting if desired. Be aware that Japanese varieties are also available, so be certain to look for C. americana on the label so that you get the native variety. Berries can be made into wine or jelly, but this plant is also a favorite of birds.
Fall obedient plant is a 2 to 4 foot, sun to part sun perennial. It has pink or purple blooms in August through October on tall spikes. The blossoms last a long time, and the flowers can be moved and will stay obediently where they're placed. They will spread aggressively, but they can be used as a tall ground cover, and they're easy to dig new plants in spring if you want to contain them. They attract nectarine, hummingbirds, and butterflies.
Yellow Indian grass can be found in tall grass prairies, and as such, grows 3 to 8 feet in height. This perennial grass has broad blue-green blades and blooms in the fall with deep yellow flowers and red rust awns. It prefers sun or partial shade and is drought tolerant. Yellow Indian grass can be divided at the roots when dormant or started from seed. In a garden setting, it will self-seed. This bird-friendly grass is also a larval host for the black and white skipper butterfly.
Yaupon holly, Ilex vomitoria. This is a 12 to 25 foot shrub with multi-trunks that, if left unpruned, forms thickets. Small, shiny, evergreen leaves stay on the plant along with the red berries all winter. This beautiful contrast of shiny evergreen leaves and red berries make it a popular holiday decoration. Males bloom but don't bear berries. The species name vomitoria indicates its medicinal use. The berries are eaten by 7+ species of birds and it is the only Texas plant with caffeine.
Gulf muley is a perennial grass that grows 1.5 to 3 feet tall. It prefers sun or partial shade and blooms in the fall with airy seed heads that go from lavender to pink. As such, Gulf muley is one of the most dramatic and attractive native grasses. It also grows well with other grasses and likes moist or even poorly drained soil. It can be cut back to 6 inches in February. Gulf muley is a bird-friendly grass.
Wax myrtle. This multi-trunked tree/shrub grows to 12 feet. It has a willowy, spicy scent to the leaves. In years past, people boiled the berries and skimmed off the wax to make candles and soap, and the bark and leaves were used for medicinal purposes. 40+ species of birds eat the fruit, and it is the larval host of the hair-streak butterfly. Possum-haw holly. Possum-haw holly is a short, multi-trunk tree with orange-red berries that remain on the branches after the leaves have fallen away. The females produce the berries and needs a male in the area to pollinate. It is said the berries are left alone in early winter by the birds till a point in later winter when the birds know they are now delicious. Berries are loved by cedar waxwings, possums, to name just a few.
Tropical sage. Tropical sage can tolerate sun, part sun, or shade. The red tubular flowers occur from early spring through frost. Pinching off the flower spikes after the seeds have formed will promote reblooming. These flowers attract hummingbirds and butterflies.
Parsley hawthorn. This slow-growing small tree lives a long life. Its lovely, dainty, white, 5-petaled flowers bloom with red stamens in early spring. The leaves look like parsley and share the twigs and branches with 1 to 2 inch spikes or thorns. The thorns protect the tree, but are good protection also for birds' nests. Red berries feed birds through the winter, and it is also a butterfly host plant.
Gay feather is found in dry prairies. It is a summer to fall blooming perennial. The thick spikes of purple flowers bloom from the top down. Gay feather makes a nice backdrop for shorter perennial flowers, and it also makes an excellent border. Gay feather is popular in cut flower arrangements. It attracts many insects and butterflies.
Arrowwood viburnum. This shrub grows to 10 feet and can be pruned to form less trunks from a clumped base. White flowers present in the spring, and blue-black fruit presents in the summer. Indians were known to make arrows from its straight stems. Birds and small mammals enjoy the fruit, and it is the larval host for the spring azure butterfly.
Gaura, or butterfly gaura. The flowers of the gaura bring the illusion of butterflies to a garden. Because of their height, this plant works well in the background. They bloom early summer to mid-fall. These flowers are first white and turn pink with age. They start blooming from the bottom of the stem.
The white oak family. White oaks are admired for their size and stately form. The white oaks were also a primary food source to native Indians. With low levels of tannin, the acorns could be ground up for flour for bread or thickeners for soups and stews. The lobed leaves are round, not pointed, and the wood is valuable for construction and furniture building. They are also an effective shade tree. River birch, Betula nigra. River birch likes to live near water banks and is good for erosion control because it has opulent, spreading roots. It is a deciduous tree, usually around 50 but up to 90 feet, and it is known for its peeling, paper-thin bark. Campers and hunters know that its bark will kindle a fire, wet or dry. The branches fork often, and the twigs stick out every which way. Many kinds of birds consume the spring seeds.
Blue mist flower. Blue mist flower grows to be 1 to 3 feet tall. It can be seen blooming from late summer to fall. Its tiny blue lavender puffs of blossoms attract many nectaring insects and butterflies. Blue mist flower can spread quickly by rhizome and seed, forming dense clumps. To control reseeding plants, cut back after blooming.
Drummond red maple, Acer rubrum variation Drummondii, is a beautiful, fast-growing deciduous tree that attains 90 feet with good conditions. In the spring, it produces pairs of winged, flattened keys that are about an inch long. Red is to be found on the tree year-long with buds, leaves, twigs, and a beautiful fall display prior to the leaves falling to the ground. Bark is smooth when young. Maplewood is prized for its furniture, woodenware, and handles. Many animals eat the seeds, and maples are larval hosts for mourning cloak and swallowtail butterflies. Willow oak, Quercus phylos. Willow oaks are tall, short-lived oaks that prefer to be waterside and can withstand extended flooding. It is losing its popularity as a shade tree because it is short-lived and doesn't thrive in dry conditions. It is recognized by its long, slender leaves with no lobes. It's also recognized because its bark exhibits horizontal stripes of light and dark lichen. The acorns are a good food source for turkey, quail, jays, and foxes, squirrels, and other. Cedar elm, Ulmus crassifolia, is a fast-growing deciduous tree that reaches 75 feet. One distinguishing characteristic from the other elms is the sandpapery feel of its small leaves. Another is that it flowers and sets seeds in the fall. It shares the ability to grow corky wings on its branches, but to a lesser extent than the winged elm. It is often used as a good shade tree, but its wood is considered inferior to other elms. It's a larval host to the mourning cloak and question mark butterflies.
Inland sea oats grows 2 to 4 feet tall and is a rare shade-tolerant native grass. It is easily recognizable for its lovely, drooping, wheat-like seed heads, visible from midsummer to October. It makes a good ground cover or understory plant that can be cut back in February. Be aware that its seeds are very fertile and spread aggressively. The seeds are beneficial for wildlife, and this perennial grass is a larval host for skippers. The seed stalks also make impressive flower arrangements.
Now we're moving into the upland area that has better drained soils.
Coral berries are a low-growing spreading shrub about 1.5 to 3 feet tall. They like part shade to shade, deciduous, and they have berries that grow December through May from tiny green flowers. The leaves are opposite on long stems which can root where they touch the ground and will form colonies. To contain, trim the long runners. Birds and small mammals use coral berries for nesting and winter food.
Liquid amber Styraciflua, or American sweet gum, is a very tall, large tree, can grow up to 150 feet. Its leaves are 5-fingered palmate and wider than they are long and provide great shade. Sweet gum has a medical history as well as being a popular chewing gum years ago. It was used to treat diarrhea and for healing wounds, coughs, and scaly skin diseases. The fall foliage is bright red or maroon or yellow, and its 1 to 2 inch spiky seed balls are painful if stepped on. However, squirrels and 25 plus species of birds have figured out how to eat the seeds within. Mexican plum. The Mexican plum is a small, understory tree that blooms early in the spring with rich, dense white flowers that fade to pink. The early flowering results in swarms of hungry bees and butterflies looking for their spring nectar. References state that the tree actually hums in the spring when the bees are in pursuit. The purple plums are edible by birds and small mammals, and people can eat them raw too, but it is recommended that they be made into jelly. Eastern redbuds. This lovely 30-foot tall, single trunk, understory tree tells us it is spring every year. The trunk and branches become covered with bright pink to purple flowers before the leaves appear. The heart-shaped leaves turn yellow in the fall. Red buds occur naturally in wood edges with morning sun. The seeds are food for birds. The flowers are used by hummingbirds for nectar, and honeybees and native bees distribute its pollen.
Barbados cherry is a semi-evergreen shrub that grows 4 to 9 feet. Pink blossoms and fruit appear in the spring and again in the fall. The fruit is a small red cherry that quickly disappears, as this is a favorite with birds. Barbados cherry is host for skippers and Cassius blue butterflies. The plant can tolerate partial shade or full sun.
Black-eyed Susan. Black-eyed Susan is an annual that grows to be 1 to 2 feet tall. It contributes bright yellow flowers to the prairie or gardens. The seeds can be sown in the fall or spring. The spent seed heads can be left for the birds or left to drop to the ground and reseed. The black-eyed Susan is the larval host of the bordered patch butterfly. Green milkweed. The green milkweed is the host plant for the monarch family of butterflies. The milky sap of this plant can be very sticky and irritating to the skin. It is poisonous to insects other than the monarch. The light green bloom head contains many blossoms. It prefers full sun and can be difficult to establish. The seed pods of the milkweed split open, releasing the seeds to be transported through the air. Wine cup. Wine cups like sun to part shade. Their flower contains 5 wine-colored petals, forming cup-shaped flowers with a white throat. They bloom in spring and go dormant in the heat of summer. They are the larval host for the gray hairstreak butterfly.
Little bluestem prefers sun to partial sun and grows in columnar clumps, 2 to 5 feet tall. This perennial grass has bluish stems that turn to copper leaves in the fall and is notable for its white, fluffy, tufted seed heads that resemble a horse's tail. It grows well in unenriched soil, sand, loam, or clay, and needs good drainage. It is a drought-tolerant grass that can be cut back in the fall. Little bluestem is a larval host for many skippers. Sidotes grama is a perennial grass that grows 1 to 3 feet tall in erect, wiry clumps. It prefers sun or partial sun. Purplish, oat-like spikelets uniformly line one side of the stem, bleaching to a tan color in the fall. This medium-tall grass mixes well in plantings with spring wildflowers because it stays short throughout the spring. It is also host for green, sheep, and dotted skipper butterflies, and birds love the ripe seeds. Sidotes grama is also the state grass of Texas.
Coral honeysuckle is a high-climbing, sun or part-shade perennial. Coral tubular flowers with yellow stamens. Has a long blooming period and likes sun in the morning and shade in the afternoon, but it can take sun all day if the roots are well shaded. It attracts birds, hummingbirds in spring, summer, and fall, and other birds such as quail, purple finch, goldfinch, hermit thrush, and robins like the bright red berries in fall. Its host plant is spring azure butterfly, snowberry clearwing moth. The passion flower vine is a 6 to 25 foot long vine. It's semi-evergreen, dormant in winter. It likes sun to part sun and has intricate purple flowers with numerous wavy petals from May through August. The native has 3 lobes on the leaves. It grows easily in sand, loam, and clay and can tolerate light saline. It can be aggressive, so cut back unwanted suckers. Starts fresh growth every year. If yours has leaves with 5 lobes, it's from Asia. It's non-native.
Sanguine purple coneflower. This perennial's leaves occur mostly at the base. The flower blooms on a tall, leafless stalk. It has rose to purple-colored drooping petals on raised brown disc flowers. It prefers sun to part shade. Indian blanket, sometimes called firewheel. This beautiful flower, with its bright red ray flowers and yellow outer ring, loves the sun. It blooms from April to frost. It is an annual but reseeds prolifically. To prolong blooming, deadhead in water during the summer. It likes good drainage.
There's a group of exotic invasive species that we want people to be familiar with and understand kind of what they are and recognize them so that you would try to avoid putting them in your landscape. So we're going to move on and we're going to talk about 5 invasive species.
Chinese privet has escaped cultivation and forms thickets. It thrives in all types of soil and can be identified by small oval leaves opposite each other on long arching branches, with clusters of white flowers. A native alternative could be wax myrtle. The Chinese tallow causes large-scale ecosystem modification by replacing native vegetation, thereby reducing diversity with a negative effect on wildlife. It invades wet prairies and vacant lots, and is virtually impossible to eliminate. It can begin producing seed in as little as 3 years. Japanese honeysuckle literally smothers the competition by forming dense mats that can cover trees, shading out the plants below. As a woody vine, it can girdle a small sapling. It flowers from April to July, and the birds carry the black seeds far and wide. Choose our native coral honeysuckle as the alternative. Japanese privet, glossy privet, or ligustrum has escaped cultivation as a sheared hedge and become an invader of vacant lots and fence rows. It can grow to 20 feet, and the leaves are smooth, leathery, and larger than the Chinese privet. It forms dense thickets by root sprouts as well as birds distributing the seeds. Choose our native cherry laurel or yaupon as an alternative. In the 1850s, trifoliate orange was introduced from China, possibly as a thorny hedge to confine livestock. They grow in the understory very rapidly and are able to shade out native plants. Mammals spread the seeds. They are used as a rootstock for the citrus industry, so if your citrus tree has suckers growing from below the graft with a 3-leaflet leaf, you probably have trifoliate orange.